Good night, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, and welcome to the Black Consciousness Festival 2020. We are grateful that you're joining us from all over the globe on Zoom and on Facebook Live. My name is Grace, and I am from the amazing Twin Island, Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and this is my co-host, Samuel.
Welcome, everyone. The Black Consciousness Festival is a global online platform for the commemoration, celebration, and sharing of vital histories and stories that boost the awareness and impact of the pride, power, and practice of people of African descent.
The festival is building awareness around how each of us can take the necessary steps for restitution and reparation.
Today, we present one of our amazing cultural activities. We join Martin Raymond and Robin Foster as they explore Kaiso, Soca, Calypso beats, and rhythms.
So a bit about Martin Raymond. British-born Martin.
Hi, evening. Yes, hi, good evening.
Okay, I'm Robin Foster. All right. Okay, what's up? Martin, you ready to go?
Yeah, that was it.
Well, yeah, we're waiting for the...
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your patience.
Yeah,
We're working out some technical difficulties, but bear with us.
Yeah, it's getting an echo on you guys, which means somebody
Getting back to the
else.
program. So, a bit about Martin Raymond. British-born Martin Raymond migrated to Trinidad at an early age and began playing music at age 9. Now, Martin is an assistant professor of audio recording and music production at the University of Trinidad and Tobago's Academy for the Performing Arts, where he is program leader for the music technology program. Martin holds an MA in Carnival Studies from UTT. His master's thesis was on the development of sound systems in Trinidad during the 1980s.
Robin Foster is a sound engineer born and bred in Belmont, Trinidad. Foster has been involved in this industry for nearly 40 years, working on local and international TV shows, films, radio, and music festivals. In 1989, Foster founded the Engine Room Recording Limited. He engineered and produced music for artists such as Sparrow, David Rudder, Ivor George, Sundar Popo, Lord Kitchener, Shadow, and countless others. Lately, Foster is a freelance recording engineer working on local and international TV shows, films, radio, and musical festivals.
Mr. Foster and Mr. Raymond, welcome. How does it feel to be part of the Black Consciousness Festival?
So tonight, we explore TT music, the Kaiso, Calypso beats, and rhythms. I am honored to be a part of this program tonight, and I hope that you guys do enjoy. We hand over to the maestros.
All right, cool. Good night. Let me know if you're getting an echo on my end. We were getting a very bad echo from the host there. Um, Robin,
Yeah, I'm here.
I think if you switch your screen to you, I've been seeing myself
Or you
double.
want? Oh, okay. Well, I could do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're not getting that echo. Somebody could tell us.
I am hearing you. I hearing you clear. No echo at all.
All good from both of y'all, gentlemen.
All right, so there's some issue at the end with the host, but thank you very much. That was a very nice introduction. So the idea is this evening we're really looking at the rhythms and the beats that form the foundation of Kaiso, Calypso, Soca. And one of the things I would say is, one of the things I would say is that we can trace all those rhythms and all those beats directly back to Africa, and West Africa in particular, and directly back to the Atlantic slave trade. I just want to share something very quickly with you, in the sense of practically all the music we enjoy nowadays all over the world has its roots there, and it's a kind of a mixture of African rhythms and European melodies. One of the reasons for that is that during the slave trade, I would say from slavery days, Africans were exposed to European music, and Europeans were exposed to African music over the course of that 400 years. And one of the things to understand that one of the key birthplaces of a lot of this music was in New Orleans. In fact, a specific area in New Orleans called Congo Square. And it is actually one of the few areas in the US that allowed African drumming traditions. Because here in the Caribbean, African drumming was outlawed. So as much as we are talking about drumming and beats and whatnot, there was a time, in fact, I would say almost recently, in the scheme of things, when it was illegal to play these beats and these rhythms. Robin, you want to tell them a little bit about New Orleans, or the significance of New Orleans and the linkages with the Caribbean?
Well, before that, it's significant when we talk about the banning of the African drum, right? Because part of the reason for the development of the steel band is because kind of the banning of the African drum, and we had to find something, and it just so happened Trinidad had oil and there was oil drums here. So we came up with that, you know. So New Orleans is very interesting. New Orleans is a place, that Congo Square you talk about there is the heart of the whole New Orleans black music scene, right? New Orleans is credited as the home of jazz, the home of funk, right? And as the meters would say, New Orleans is where the blues was born, right? And it is so significant that New Orleans is they call it the Big Easy, right? Because it is more akin the kind of relaxed atmosphere of like a Caribbean country, more than like an American metropolis where everything moving fast, right? Everything came out of there, and they had a carnival too. They had the Mardi Gras carnival, which came out of the French, the French pre-Lenten carnival, right? Because we in Trinidad, you see, there were two carnivals in the Caribbean, right? There were, wherever you had the French influence, you had the French pre-Lenten ball, and then the African people would celebrate the end of the crop, which is like the crop over, right? like how they call it in right. So you notice all the carnivals in the Caribbean around the time when the sugarcane crop when they would reap the sugarcane crop, right? In Trinidad now, we're a funny place because a lot of our black people here came from the French islands. Because when the British came, the British found that the country wasn't developed, and they invited the French planters to come here, and they came out of the slaves. That's why we have so much black people with Didier and Raymond, right? So the music developed. Also in the carnival there, they have a freaky Indian mass, which is here, right? And we don't know if it is the sale. New Orleans is also a port town. So people wonder if it's the Trinidadians when they're sailing. But I have heard people claim that the slaves went away and they would go live with the Indians, right? The Indians would take them in, and like that is and if you know anything about about traditional African practice, like we have Yoruba type on the radar, it's all about giving homage to the ancestors and the elders, right? And they have a thing that and I've heard them say that when you're in a man country, right? Like in a man house, meaning like even in Trinidad, the Orisha people and thing would go up to the Inarima by the First Nation, and would kind of pay homage to them, because like they say, if you go in a man house and you ask him to take you in, you would be treated better, kind of thing, right? So there's a clip with Cyril Neville, who from the Meters, he was talking about Big Chief Jolly, who was his uncle, and that was their the synergy between them and the Native American, right? They have other people saying that now, man, it's the Trinis who went there in the boat and things that to play that, and but we would never know, I suppose. Right?
Well, the thing with all of that is that right after the end of the slave trade, from that period from the 1830s in the Caribbean right up to the 1860s in the US, two things happened. Number one, there was all of a sudden an explosion of new forms of music, things that were suppressed and hidden or bubbling under the surface. All of a sudden, these new forms of music in the form of calypso, in the forms of blues, blues, ragtime, all of those things suddenly exploded. Other thing was a mass movement of people, in that you had persons from the Caribbean moving north into America, people in America now pretty free, emancipated Africans moving north. You also had the start of the Panama Canal. You had the different establishment of the American companies here. Well, that was actually much earlier. So there was a lot of back and forth. Two significant things happened. Let me share another thing with you. You guys outside there. In Trinidad, there were two events I call foundational events. One was the Cambulé in 1881. Yeah, one of the things to be aware of, this riot was because of drums. It's like as a cool hashtag because drums. Yeah, that was the problem. The then police commissioner, Captain Baker, did not like Africans playing drums. And he went down there to shoot people. This was a crop over festival, or what we'll call a crop over, the Cambulé, the end of the kind of
the end of the crop, the burning of the cane, right? Yeah.
And they had been celebrating this ever since emancipation. And he felt time to put a stop to this. Fortunately, the British governor at the time, can't remember his name, sense prevailed, and there was a riot, but nobody got shot. But I have to understand, this was because of drums. A few years later, Baker unfortunately got his wish with the Jose riots in San Fernando. I was actually just informed last week by one of my students that this picture is actually not a Jose procession, but actually a Hindu festival taking place in San Fernando around the same time. So Wikipedia, we let somebody have to update the Wikipedia page. But the fact is, the authorities also saw this as threatening, because now you had Hindus, Muslims, as well as Africans joining in this procession. And the big problem seemed to be that they were playing drums. Unfortunately, Captain Baker got his wish, and he massacred anywhere from 20 people to 200. Nobody knows the exact number for sure. It's something that we should know more about in our history. I just want to share something with you. So this is a letter in the Trinidad Gazette, the Trinidad News in 1883. So this was like the same year as the Jose massacre, a few years after the Canbule riots. Says, and he's once again talking about drums and drumming. He says, to the European, there's no music in it. A dull, monotonous reiteration of sound, rendered the more objectionable by the distance to which it is carried and the immense reverberating capacity of the instrument. So that's how they were viewing this. Yeah, the weird thing about this, I could have sworn this same person, I don't know how old I might be now, I swear they wrote a letter this year in the papers, more or less the same, except they were talking about music trucks and modern day soca. Oh, it's dull, monotonous, it has no music in it, and the reverberating capacity of the trucks. So, as I said, the more things change, the more they change,
the more they remain the same.
The more they remain the same. But this attitude persists in several ways. But at the foundation of those African drumming traditions is a very specific beat. And it's one of the things that survived that journey, originated somewhere in West Africa, either Ghana or Nigeria, about 500
I think it was Nigeria. There's a Yoruba beat, and they say the fishermen from Ghana heard it and took it back to Ghana.
Yes. Yeah, picked it up. So about 500 years ago, this particular beat emerged, and it sounds something like this. So let's going to switch across to my DAW here. So it's something that looks, and it sounds something like this. You all hear. You all hearing that, right? Yeah. Now, the thing about this beat is, in modern days, we give it the name clave.
The clave, that's
very
what the Spanish
strongly
call it, yeah.
with Cuba, but its origin is much, much further back, been traced back to West Africa. And the thing about it is, and it's a big feature of West African music, is that it's what we call syncopated, in that it is not on a beat. In fact, if you look at it in musical notation, not everyone can read music, but they can see how it looks uneven, it looks jumbled up, it looks kind of confusing here. It is not like a nice steady lineup of notes. So that is what syncopation is. So the idea of syncopation is that we have a count, like a steady beat, and this moves around it. And this is the main thing of this particular beat. And it seems that rhythm lies at the heart of Kaiso, Calypso, Soca, as well as a whole lot more.
Rock and roll.
Yes. So
everything.
Yeah,
everything.
Yeah, I'll give an example. So if it's one thing, every time I hear this beat, I'm reminded of the phrase from Bob Marley's Redemption song. He says, old pirates, yes, they rob I, unite to the merchant ship. And then minutes after they took I, from the bottomless pit. But my hand was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. and we forward in this generation triumphantly. So keep that beat in mind and take a listen to this. So this is in the early days of rock and roll, one of the pioneers of rock and roll from New Orleans. Listen to the kind of rhythms that he's playing here. This is in late 1950s. Was right there the foundation of rock and roll, one of those new forms of music that came out. And one of the problems the authorities, particularly in the southern United States, had with that is, as the elders in Ghana, Nigeria will tell you, that beat has a kind of a power. It has a kind of a healing. It's a rhythm that brings people together. And check what was happening in the States every time this played. So this was a time in the States where black and white people weren't allowed to sit down in an audience together. And when they played that music.
Watch the technique of Bo Diddley.
You're sending the youths, particularly the white youths, crazy. And of course, then every time there were concerts, there were riots in the States because black and white kids would start mixing up together. Between the southern United States, the police would jump in and start busting people's heads, etc. But the music had a kind of power, and that particular rhythm has a kind of power that couldn't be denied. And speaking about forwarding in this generation triumphantly, just when you thought it had disappeared from the culture, in the mid-2010s, it has re-emerged with a vengeance, mainly associated with EDM music, and you started hearing things like this.
Rufus boy, let me love boy, what you know. Rufus boy, let me love boy, what you know. Rufus boy, let me love boy, what you know. Rufus boy, let me love. Caught up in my tape. Caught up in my tape. Don't care what you say to me, I'ma bite your feelings out. I miss you in the basement. But your brother was a good substitute for you.
And then you also
And if you love
like
me,
Major Lazer, Justin Bieber.
You know, the freaky thing with them 5 notes is that even if they're not in your face, there's beyond the off. There's beyond the off beat.
And he's playing on the keyboards, not even on the drums.
when you
Yeah.
walk on the sidewalk, innocent, remember, all we did was care for each other. But the night was warm, we were bold and young. All around, the wind blows, we would only hold on to let go.
So it's definitely a beat that we say kind of forward in this generation triumphantly. But but when it comes to Trinidad, though, it's something a little unusual on our side in that, for whatever reasons, we only use about half of that beat, what we call the half clappy. And if I take that beat and chop it in half, it now sounds like this. So like we just only use the first half of it. And that rhythm very much is what formed the foundation of Kaiso and Calypso first played on African drums, and then later on transposed a conventional drum kit. Give me a second here. And it is that rhythm, whether fast or slow.
Right. Pack,
Yeah,
pack,
so-
pack, pack, pack,
Yeah,
pack, pack,
Yeah,
pack, pack.
so that rhythm very much
Right.
formed the foundation. And for instance, in a lot of calypsos in the 50s and 60s, because of challenges with recording technology at the time, drums were not a big feature, in that it was difficult to record drums, so either they were left out of the recording, or from what I made to understand, in some cases the drummer was told, like, you go across in the other room and everyone stay in this room. Well, most of those recordings were done with one mic. And it's only by the mid-70s, as technology improved, we could now start to hear the drums and bring them out. And one of the first records to actually do that was by the Mighty Shadow in 1974 with Bassman. So this record is actually unusual for two reasons. Number one, of course, the use of a kind of a funk style bass line. One would almost say a New Orleans style bass line.
Well, as Pelham Goddard explained, well, in those days in the traditional calypso, the bass would follow the chords. You would play like chord cymbals, the walking bass line, boom, 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 right? And this song was freaky in a way because the song was about a bass line. Yeah, and that is why he actually wrote a bass line for it. And you know that song sends Trinidad mad. That's all you heard Carnival Tuesday in 1974.
Yeah.
You know, and Shadow had a dance to it and all that, right?
On top of that, I understand it. Yeah. In fact, I understand it was the first calypso to actually have a separate sheet music for the bass. You never used to have sheet music
right,
for the
that's
bass.
what I'm saying.
The
Yeah,
bass
because
would
as
have
Pelham
a
was
chord
saying,
sheet.
they would be playing chord cymbals, right? They would be following the chords, walking bass line,
Yeah.
right? But this bring
but
bass
also
line.
Yeah, go ahead.
This brought bass line into it, right? I have a feature I could play where Pelham and Leston Paul and Kenny Phillips was discussing the kind of differences between the two genres, right?
Yeah, well, even before you get to that, the thing with this record as well is for the first time the drums started to come to the fore, and we could actually start to hear that same half clave beat on the kick drum. We could feel that.
I was planning to forget Calypso and go and plant peas in Tobago, but I am afraid I can't make the grade, cause every night I lie down in my bed, I hearing a bass man in my head.
So off of the actual record itself, you're actually feeling you're feeling that beat, as we call it, very strongly. And what on that record, what was done was the last part of the beat. That last note was moved off of the drum and put on the snare. But on that particular record, it wasn't very loud. So you end up with something that sounds like this. Sorry, Robin, your screen is showing both you and me. You should just probably switch it to...
What you wanted to show? Just me alone?
Yeah, got it. Yeah, so this was the groove of Kaiso, of Calypso. I would say probably from the early 1940s right up to about 1974. anyone who was near a steel band would hear that groove coming out very, very strongly. But it's only with Shadow we started to hear it on record. Because the other thing that was happening at that time was a lot of new music was coming out of the US in terms of a lot of the funk, a lot of the R&B, James Brown. They also had some new music coming out of Jamaica, what they call rocksteady. This is even before reggae music, that term really came to the forefront. And one of the features to me of those styles of music was that you could actually hear the drums very, very clearly. So that technique is only in the mid-70s, it started to really hear the drums being articulated on local records.
The
and
disco era.
Yeah, but just before the disco era, the power of that came out. Now, as I mentioned, the disco era, so there's a little segue. And a little, let me engage in a little bit of revisionist history. So in about 1975, what had started happening, I would say, was for a lot of the, and you could elaborate this on your clip, Robin. A lot of people in the Calypso fraternity started noticing that young people were moving away from the Calypso music. They were listening more to funk and this new music coming out of Jamaica. So within that, people started finding there must be a way we can bring youths back to the music. And one of the persons seeking to do that was Garfield Blackman, then called Lord Shorty. And in 1975, he had been experimenting with different things since 1972, 1973, fusing music in different ways. And in 1975, came with a record called Endless Vibrations. The main thing about Endless Vibrations...
1974.
74.
Yeah.
It was done in 1974. It came out for Carnival in 1975. It wasn't the same as Bassman, if I recall correctly. I think 74, he had the reply to the Prime Minister or something. But I know, I say, mid-70s. What was noticeable about this record was it had a completely different drum beat to that kind of, traditional Calypso, Kaiso kind of thing. I'm just going to play the start of it. I'm sorry for cutting all these records short. I know we have limited time.
Change the accent of Carnival to a groovy.
So that record was like a bomb going off. And that's why I'm pretty sure it was the year after Bassman, because Bassman had really woken up the tongue. And then everyone is kind of primed for change. But the one thing everybody noticed about that record, or the most noticeable feature, was it had a different kind of beat, more straighter on the pulse beat. And at the time, or shortly afterwards, people ascribed that to the influence of new form of music that was coming out of the States, disco music, primarily this particular record by the Hughes Corporation that came out a year before.
Corporation was from New Orleans too, eh? Yes.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, so check the beat on this record.
That they say
talk about
bring the disco, start the disco era.
Yeah, talk about 73, 74. Now I say conventional wisdom has it that but Shorty was influenced by this particular record and he used the same type of beat on Endless Vibrations. But there's some debate about exactly when he recorded Endless Vibrations, and there were earlier versions of it.
Well,
but then
I have
to add fuel, hold on. To
yeah,
add fuel to the
holding on.
yeah, is recently there was an interview with the Hughes Corporation, where the producer of this record, and they said they were on vacation in the Caribbean, and they wanted to make this kind of Caribbean influence record. So the goal behind this record was a kind of Caribbean influence record. And they had been on vacation in the Caribbean and they had heard a particular drum beat. And they wanted to use that drum beat on their record. And the idea was to marry that with a reggae bass line. And in fact, the one person who can clear up this mystery, one of the talks I have heard is the person they actually heard was a drummer called Toby Tobias.
Oh, Michael
Toby
Tobias.
Harry Belafonte.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the stories I heard was that it was Harry Belafonte who asked Toby to play a simplified, to play a simplified beat, as opposed to the more complex syncopated beat. So it's a kind of a little circle. But the other piece of the puzzle, so is in essence, this Hughes Corporation record, they were seeking to capture a Caribbean feel. And that naturally resonated. But the other piece of the record is this record. So this is a record from 1955, 56, and it was done by Emery Cook for the Cook label. And it actually features recordings that were done as far back as 1940 something. And what he did was, so this is unfortunately, some Smithsonian Folkways recordings. One of these days we'll have a local version of this. This is one of the things we're working on at UTT to create this type of archive. But so it's a record called Drums of Trinidad, and one of the things on it, so what it records is all the different, what we call drumming hands. So because of all the different parts of Africa, most of the persons that came to Trinidad came from, they brought their different drumming styles with them. And one of the beats that is of interest is something called Primitive. Let's hope it plays here. Listen to this beat. And in that beat, we hear the same doom, 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 doom as what we consider the soca beat. We also hear a variation of it on what's called the Congo beat. It was used in certain, I'll say, Yoruba ceremonies. So, and it's something also that Lord he hinted at. Sorry, this is freaking me out seeing myself twice.
Oh, sorry. So sorry about it.
Yeah.
Okay,
what you delete and see. There's one of the things that Shorty hinted at, because when as the term soca came to be applied to the music he was creating, a lot of people assumed it was what persons, I think, like Kalyan and what were doing, which was North American soul and calypso. But one of the things Shorty hinted at in later years, what his goal was the soul of calypso, that he said he went back to the roots. He went back to Shango.
He took the soul out of it. He took the beats and thing that was hidden and bring it up to the surface. That's what he said. The thing about that though is that yes, that's what he said. But you see the references of that song to the American songs, Rock Your Boat, Rock Your Boat, Rock Your Boat.
Right on, brother.
Yeah, right. Boom, boom. It gives the whole thing that is a merger of the two forms. But as my good friend and record producer Joe Brown always used to say, is that he always had a saying. He said calypso mimics the music of the day, and like, okay, what that means is like back in the day when the hip music in the world was this kind of crooning kind of music, Al Jolson and that kind of thing. Growling Tiger, and they used to sing like that, you know, the gold, stole the gold in Africa. Mussolini want from the emperor. You know, that kind of thing. And then when it came into like with Kitchener and then with the bebop jazz, you know, it started the song like that, you know, with, you know, the whole Charlie Parker and thing influence. And then when it came up and it became like soul and funk and thing, it like, you know, and so now that is dub and is thing now, the music Calypso songing like that, you know, so people has had this argument that they're shifting away from what it is, but it's Calypso has always done that. You know what I mean? In fact, Shell Shock, deceased, rest his soul, you know, he was claiming that, I have it in the clip there, that right now that the music, soca, dance hall and hip hop is like no hardly any difference at all. It's just the accent of the person who chanting on top of it. That's the only thing what is make it go, you know. He was saying he did Roll It Girl. He wrote a hip hop beat. And when Alison Hines went on it, it became soca.
And the thing is, what makes it soca, and some might feel has been overlooked, or what makes Calypso Calypso, and any Calypso derived form Calypso, is that syncopation. In that Calypso is one of the few types of music where the melody has a distinctive pattern in terms of the distinctive rhythm to the melody. In that, for instance, if you take reggae music, so reggae music is really about an accompaniment style. If you were to mute all the instruments on a reggae song and just leave the vocal and ignore the Jamaican accent, melodically it will be no different from R&B. It's very, uses the same type of scales, same kind of on the beat phrasing as R&B rock, that sort of United States thing. It's only the accompaniment that makes it reggae. Whereas in Trinidad, what happened, Calypso, you have someone like Kitchener singing, "Come in town, Juve morning, find yourself in a band." You could hear the you could hear the do, you could hear that syncopation even in the melody, and that is what makes the difference. So even though Shock had a hip hop beat on Roll It Girl, from the time she come roll it girl, from the time she came with that syncopation, that body Calypso.
And there was one with Marshall, what she want a man that is younger. And then when Rose came on in the end, and Rose said, "Hey, young boy, tell me what you see."
That's the Calypso right there. But the main thing is, from the time Shorty dropped that record, I said it was like a bomb going off, and the soca beat. And this is the thing. So Shorty's concept for soca was bigger than just the drum beat, but it's the drum beat what caught everyone's attention, and that drum beat literally took over everything. From 1975.
It's the drum beat and the addition of the bass line.
In some ways, I have to say that Shadow does not get enough credit, and some I know he grumbled about in the day. But Shadow was a huge influence on what eventually became soca. But you have, I believe you have a clip of some stuff there you can play that goes into some detail about all those influences that came together.
But now I'm going there, and anything could happen. But the hard work happened already. We're talking about one performance. After all the hard work, the nights and the days, and the thing I'm putting it together, that's the thing I want to say today. When they eliminate this thing, and just watch the thing when it happens and say, "You are," and you just be.
Yeah, but not hearing sound on the YouTube.
You're not hearing the sound?
You heard it before. Yeah, hear it now.
Long ago in Tobago. Was plenty that down on the road. They came down to Lekito. They came from Cologne, horns on their head. One name in the two, eyes always red. One
you could hear the half clave there.
Yeah.
That is it. You know, and the thing, all right, the funny thing about Jamaica is like sandwiched in between New Orleans on the north and Trinidad in the south, right? And if you okay, if we listen to let me see if I find it now. Miss Lou, right? Right? Louise Bennett, right? If you listen to Miss Lou, which is the early, well, the Jamaican and Miss Lou is a big influence on all of Jamaican music, right? Louise Bennett. Oh gosh, boy. Nice boy. Your boy getting all the typing in one keyboard for the other computer. Oh gosh. Yes, boy. Lord have mercy.
I think it's probably too much technology.
Right,
Nobody, you can play that little mini documentary you have about the
all right, yeah. So what happened in thing is that in Jamaica they used to hear the New Orleans radio, right? And then they had this, well, they were kind of influenced by the Calypso too, and they kind of, you know, the two kind of merged together. And you know, but you know what I want us to get into, Martin, and you are the right man to explain it, right? This whole idea of what is like the 4 beats in the bar, right? Like for instance, like funk, James Brown would, as Bootsy Collins would say, James Brown would tell him, hey, you're playing all the nice funky things, I like that, but you had to give me the one, right? And they had a whole thing on the one where they would go boom, 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, and so that was 1 and 3, right? Was it?
Yeah.
And soca now, Calypso, it was what? How the you could break that beat down?
No, this was a major difference, as I said. So in Calypso or Kaiso, you had the one isn't very strong. So you only have like a one happening there, and depending on where you listen, this is also why tourists found it difficult to dance to the music. If you weren't counting it, you wouldn't know where you are in the beat because that one was really strong enough. But it's there,
right?
It's like 1, 1. And so what Shorty did do when it came to soca was almost like taking this offbeat and moving it similar to American funk, moving that onto a one. So we now have. So we have a straighter thing there, and we can feel the pulse there.
And
that was actually, yeah. So it's like 1, 2, and 1, 2, and that kind of
1, 2, and 1. All right. Do it again, man.
So I'll take off the cowbell. Right. Yeah, so that was very much so that was the difference between, we could say, Kaiso and Soca. That's what happens with that beat. If I move it back. So if I just move it back. Has a totally different bounce there. Being on the offbeat, and by the time that kind of goes back on the one. And in so doing, that brought it more in line with funk, with R&B,
right.
with
you knew where the one was.
Particular. Yes. So
Right. And
easier to
no,
tell
but
where-
the funk musicians who went disco, they would say they sold out because disco was like 4 on the floor.
Yeah, so it gave each beat,
And
each
it
beat
didn't
almost
it
sort
didn't
of-
have the
sort-
breakup, the syncopation. You
Yes,
know?
they gave it a. Do you want to play that little documentary on Soca? I think we have enough time
All
because
right.
that really kind of shows the impact.
Yeah, this was
the impact that it had.
all right. This was a all right. This was a little promo I put together of a documentary I was hoping to do, but it was an intense documentary on the history of soca. And I did this little promo to try to sell it. A lot of people said they were interested, but they never, it never happened. But so I will play a bit of it. It's only like 7 minutes long, but you can listen to it and you will hear some of the top music people in Trinidad talking about the transition from Calypso to Soca. So you can take it in now.
Since Soca come out, Soca is the music that really influenced the media in a way. They played more.
Okay, guys, sorry about that, right? Let me get it down correct now. Let me just start it over. So we will
arranger and producer.
We will know what we could do it right. Okay, so we're going again from the top. Boom.
The Calypso beat was dying out. It wasn't making no headway.
People were getting fed up because really truly it had a time when Calypso was kind of in a down. Since Soca come out, Soca is the music that really influenced the media in a way. They played more.
Soca pioneers Ed Watson and Pelham Goddard.
Change the accent of carnival to a groovy bacchanal.
Arranger and producer Leston Paul.
Every time there's a change of music or something that is new, it's always been influenced by something that is wrong in your orbit at the time.
Ed Watson explains. Soca is a make-up beat with a lot of things in it. It has some of soul beat in it. It has some of the calypso. It has some of the caras, the Latin. Arthur Marcial of the band Callian remembers.
Well, at that time, we felt that Calypso wasn't crossing over to the wider world, so to speak. And we were always trying to find ways to do that because we wanted to sell records outside. So we had a need to cross over the music.
Pelham Goddard also remembers.
Things were just happening spontaneous still. And everybody was excited at the time. And Shorty come with the soca name.
Your musical structure, make it super sweeter.
Record producer Kenny Phillips.
The originals Calypso had was just and like a drum going do, right? When soca came about, they put a snare in, and the snare pattern could either be pack, or pack.
And in Kaiso before they had no bass line because they had to follow the chords. But what they were playing is bass chord symbols as bass. 1, 6, 2, 5, boom, boom, dim, boom, boom.
And you have the congas playing right. You put that all together playing simultaneously, and you will get a feel of the calypso. Now, if you take the drums like tick tick, tick tick, tick tick, tick tick, tick tick, and then you have a conga line like tick tick, it is broken up. And if you take the bass line and you just make the bass line into a groove, and you take out that walking bass line and you put like doom 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 doom. Doom, 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 doom. That is totally different from a calypso bass. So when you put all, you gel that together, you definitely coming up with a different vibe, a different song, a different feel. That is what it's all about. So I don't think some people may say Calypso is soca and soca is Calypso. I totally disagree with that.
Less than Paul. Arthur Marcial discusses Callian's contribution.
We kept our Calypso rhythm. We slowed it down a bit and we add what is called a funky bass line and a soulful horn line.
And then there was the other big influence.
The list in there, which I'm sure you know all of these by heart.
Shorty know plenty things, you know. Shorty know plenty Hindi and yeah, like how I could say I played Tasha in St. James and people say, I hear he's a big Tasha man and all this kind of thing. Shorty was influenced too in countryside in the south.
Band leader Mangal Patesa remembers one such influence.
Now he had a neighbor named Narayan living next door to him, who used to play a dholak and sing. And he was hearing this beat, this kind of chutney beat. And he take that and he took my drummer, who was also his barber, and he recorded his first song.
Life today, oh, all like yesterday.
He take the dholak beats, which was a beat called Keharwa beat, and he teach them boys to play it on the kit drum, the jazz drum. And he took the bass of the dholak and he put it on the bass guitar.
Helen Goddard thinks this concept is credible. He explains why.
He could have that the right hand beat of the tip tabla, whatever it is, you know, that could be the bass playing that, you know. Then we even put it on the bass drum. When I do super blow, the three album. We gonna party and especially I gave Bonan play that beat on the kick drum.
It will be much more exciting for you and me to be enjoying.
Kenny Phillips on the new soca.
The crowd at the time was demanding more hype, more energy, more attitude than what Calypso and the soca's of the day was doing.
Road March winning producer Neil Bernard.
I mean, there are a lot of things in songwriting and production and creating records that we have eliminated because some of the guys who are doing music now don't really understand the concepts of these things. And yes, I mean, the art is really truly reflecting now just what the artist is being fed.
Arthur Marcial agrees.
Right? So the music, it became, instead of playing all these chords that make sense, because of the lack of the knowledge of how to do that. There are times when the chord is not even related to the melody, and the people don't know it, and that is how it became. That is why we have no melodies there.
And how does producer Sheldon Shellshock Benjamin feel?
I don't care about that. To me, 5,000 drunk people in a party, not going to say, he did not play that major ninth there, so I'm not going to dance to it. They don't care. It just had to feel good.
Once again, Kenny Phillips.
Because they really have lost it. They really need to find it back. And they say they're copying the hip hop and the thing. The hip hop was real musical, Don't mind the man rapping on top of it. If you check the music and it's musical. It's well orchestrated. These guys now ain't doing nothing like that. They just anybody could turn on a drum machine is a producer.
Yep, we have to stop.
Yeah, boy.
The title is based on territory and artists. I can make a beat and call it a soca beat today, but a rapper go on it, it's hip hop. A Jamaican dancehall artist go on it, doing the dancehall thing, it's dancehall. Alison Hine go on it, it's soca. Desperate Garcia go on it, it's soca. And that's what makes, music what it is now. The lines are blurred.
You have been listening to Excerpts. All right. That was excerpts from Endless Vibrations. That was a little something I put together about 12 years ago. I'm always promising to finish it, but
yes, we definitely have to finish it. Anytime you do that split screen, your audio stream starts to get choppy.
Oh, okay. Because I'm doing that split screen because the computer with the actual Zoom meeting is the one back here. So if I go to look over there, right? So all right. Next time I'll put it up close where I could see it.
For some reason, it's kind of interfering with the audio stream at times. Now the thing about it is,
I think Yeah,
one of
talk to
the
me.
one of the things about it, I always tell people, I think that soca kind of got caught in the crossfire of the backlash against disco in the US. So, at least for those who don't know, in 1979, disco was sort of officially killed in the US. A particular day, a particular radio DJ held this demolition derby.
The guy in Chicago who blew up all the
Chicago.
records. Yeah.
Yes, because disco had come like this monster that
That was in 1980.
Everything. I think it was actually a year before, I think 79 or 80, so but somewhere around there. But that really marked a big turning point.
I was in school in New York in 1980 when that happened.
Yeah, so it really marked a huge turning point in that, in the US at least, where it created a very strong anti-disco sentiment, and there are all sorts of speculations.
Right. That was the disco sucks days.
Yes, but and that became a thing, disco sucks. And unfortunately, at the time, most soca music had a lot of those features of disco, namely that straight 4/4 kick drum.
Yeah, 4/4.
As we said, the disco, in the old disco era, got its start with that. Both Van McCoy, The Hustle, and Rock the Boat were very Caribbean influenced records. I think quickly in the US, soca kind of got washed away in that anti-disco sentiment. However, by 1980, to me, interesting things that started happening with soca. 1980 was a very kind of seminal year where soca music was concerned, in that person started experimenting once again, keeping the idea of that soca beat there. But two records that stood out for me in 1980 were once again arranged by Pelham Goddard, was this record by Super Blue called Soca Baptist. But listen to the beat on it. Sorry,
put it up. Put it up.
Sorry, forgot to share my screen. Sorry about that. Let's try it again. Yeah. Listen to the beat in it.
Listening to a prayer meeting, Baptist people preaching, with a leader in front, half people shaking. So I tell my partner, boy, let we get closer, because I tell myself I'm hearing soca. Though it was something to be spiritual, to me, it was more like Bacana. Oh Lord, yeah, for they dancing, some jumping out at time. If you see Baptist woman wine, oh Lord, singing whoa, 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 like soca Baptist, whoa, like soca Baptist, whoa, like soca Baptist, whoa, 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 like soca Baptist, whoa, like soca Baptist, whoa, whoa.
At the time, intention, for instance, the hand claps were really meant to simulate the what you observed at the Baptist thing. So it's also you had the kind of hand claps overlaid with the let me do something here. Give me one sec. You also like you had the hand claps overlaid. Sorry, wrong. You got that kind of 2 and 4. So they kept the soca there by adding that hand clap in that particular position. It gave it a feel that felt almost like funk. And was it unfortunate at the time that idea of hand claps on records was also very strongly associated with disco. That was a big feature at the time. Another record that came out that same year that also featured a similar technique was by Lord Nelson, a record arranged by Clive Bradley called Disco Daddy. One thing I feel is significant, so this was actually a shot of the cover of the album, and Lord Nelson, who was not a drummer as far as I'm aware, he's pictured behind a drum kit. once again selling that idea of the beat, is this new disco beat or the soca beat is what is important. I will skip the very wonderful, it's about a minute long intro by Clyde Bradley, and let's go to the part where the beat comes in. And once again, we hear that that soca beat, and this is also a very seminal record in defining modern soca. And to some extent, this put soca on the map, I'll say more in Europe, but of course in America, there's that title disco was like a bad word in 1980.
Darling, I feel the disco. Jump in the wheels and let's go. Let's go and do all them things we see on TV and get the feel of the synthesizer railway. Come, let me join the people and rock with body, so we could get the feeling to get the sound vibrating you, and how the music making you.
And to my mind, what this record and others like it did in terms of defining that idea of soca. So to me, three arrangers, just Clive Bradley, Pelham Goddard, and Ed Watson, they were very much had laid the foundation for what became modern soca. A couple of things, like both Clive Bradley and Ed Watson, they kept the syncopation of Calypso, but they put it on the keyboard. So you had da, 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 da. Yeah, so the keyboards are now giving the syncopation where the drums are keeping that steady timing. And what Pelham was really known for, Pelham was like the synthesizer guy. In that, those were some of the first Calypso records I remember hearing synthesizers on. And what he did was the role that, the kind of role that the saxophones in the brass section used to play in Calypso, Pelham would take that and put it on a synthesizer, and the brass became a lot more percussive, more like funk. And all of that together came, defined what soca was. But however, it was still very much about the beat. So a couple of things, let me go back to this quickly. In terms of the beat, what started happening was people, so we kept that, let's say, that steady bass drum. Put back in my, but people started looking for a way to incorporate that rhythm of that clave. And what they did was by putting that on the snare, so moving the snare to the offbeat. So, okay. Yeah, so you started to hear the snare become more prominent in soca in some cases.
Yeah.
Something like this. Yeah, you started to hear that. So, but the idea is what that snare was playing is that same rhythm. Yeah, so it never really went away. It just moved to a different beat. However, a few years later, by 1982, another change started happening that people did not really notice at first. And once again, Shadow was at the forefront of this particular change. So this record is another seminal record. Once again, Shadow took gossip, a rumor that people were spreading about him, flipped it on his head and turned it into an incredible hit record. Listen to the beat. So this record is a true story. a boy really stopped him in the street a day and told him everything that you hear on this record. But listen to the beat on this record. Record.
Yeah, it's a true story.
The story behind it goes, yeah. But in terms of the drum beat, so there are two conflicted stories. So the drummer on that record was Errol Wise, and according to Errol, what he told me personally, that's a day in the studio he was messing around with trying to play the kind of soca beat in reverse. Shadow heard and said, "Hey, I like that vibes. Let's put that there." And then the story I heard from Shadow was, and I'm kind of leaning a little, all respect to Errol Wise, I'm leaning a little towards Shadow's version, because it's exactly the kind of stuff Shadow came up with. Shadow said that he was in the studio on a day and he told Errol, what you're playing on the snare, play it on the bass drum, what you're playing on the bass drum, play it on the snare. And to me, that sounds exactly the kind of thing Shadow would do.
Right,
so,
yes,
yeah, so
definitely.
What he did was like, okay, take this beat, if you're seeing it here, let's move that up to our snare drum and move our snare drum pattern down to our kick drum. And now, yeah, you end up with something that sounds like, so it's the same beat, but it's actually in reverse. Yeah, so yeah, you end up with a kind of. And move this on. In fact, we take out this bass drum. And you get this kind of jerky beat, and now that beat has a kind of power to it. Hold on, yeah. So this is what it kind of finished beat sounds like. And the year that record came out, so I was with the band Firefly. We had just launched September before. And this song and this drum beat ruled Carnival 1982. The amount of time I saw people catch power in sets. Every time this beat started, people would just sort of beat up and drop down. And it was the most amazing thing to watch. And I never forgot. And people like Beaver and things can confirm this. I remember Juve morning. Our truck was stuck in a crowd by the Treasury. And we were in that corner for about close to an hour, just playing this one song over and over. And bit by bit, you would just see people in the crowd. Someone might be standing there sipping a beer, and they would just their shoulders would start to go there, their body would start to move involuntarily. You would just see people catch power and fall down. It was a most amazing thing. So something about that beat, there was a kind of power in that beat. And that led, by the following year, Super Blue started to adopt that beat. And the thing about it, if you actually listen to a lot of Super Blues work, right up to the 90s, up until recently, Super Blue does not, like Soca Baptist and a couple other records that came out, was his foray into that, what I call the traditional soca beat. But Super Blue has used this beat, or what I like to think of it as a shadow beat, or a Shango beat, maybe it might be more a Risha beat. I'm not sure what's the correct terminology for it. But Super has used this almost exclusively, particularly for his road marches. Things like wine on something, get something on wave. Yeah, the difference is Super started to speed things up. So whereas Shadow Obia might have been grooving around there, by the time we hit 89, 90, and when Super starts so calling on the children, that beat.
And
Get something and we, yeah.
Right. So what is interesting though is that whole thing about Shadow using different you know, playing instruments not in the traditional role there was, right? Now this song I'm about to play here is the song that my partner David Rudder credits as being the song that bring heavy bass and thing into soca and stuff, right? And I talked to Shadow about this too, and we'll talk a little bit about it, but listen to check this out. All right.
I know this beat is almost a funk beat.
Right. Right. Now Shadow's play reel and jig music, Tobago reel and jig music, and incorporate it into the soca, right? In this particular one, he actually took the fiddler from the reel and jig music, and he played on the bass, like dong 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 dong. He have a way to flip things on its head, you know.
He came in my house to fight me. I belong to the house of music. He's either crazy or real sick. But I don't want to sing that soca boat. I don't want to sing that soca boat. Just don't want to sing that soca boat. I don't want to sing that soca boat.
Yeah, that soca boat. That is a big song.
Yeah, there's another thing about this record. I won't say what it is, but I think people need to listen to the lyrics of that record very carefully to understand who Shadow is singing about. I won't say anything at this stage, but the record is actually not about who they think about. I won't give all the secrets, but go back and listen to it. Now, the other thing though, so in essence, soca kind of now went off in a different direction. And one of the things, so David Rudder also uses what I like to call the reverse beat. And that is like the secret formula. I'm giving out plenty secret formulas here, you know. Excuse me, Black Conscious, are we charging for the seminar? $9.99 US? Giving away plenty big secrets here, you know. All right, so this was very much the secret of Super Blues road marches. The fact that he did not use the standard soca beat, but he uses Shadow style reverse beat. And the thing about this beat is you can actually get very fast. You can speed up quite a bit. Super eventually carry tempo all the way up. All 140.
And he would sing half time, right?
Yeah. But the fact is, you can actually get very fast tempo with that particular beat. Anyhow, there was another piece to the puzzle. Let me slow it back down. So remember we were saying, so that was just like one tangent, one direction that is still underexplored in my opinion. But let's go back to the conventional soca beat, right? So this was kind of conventional beat that was happening at the time. Right. Let me get rid of this guy here. All right, so this was the kind of conventional beat that was our typical soca beat that was happening. All right, so generally most soca records by the late 70s, very early 1980s had some variation of this. And in fact, one characteristic at this time, essentially what a lot of calypsonians were doing, they would sing a normal laugh-way style calypso, like this is what Sparrow did, this is what Kitchener did. They took a normal laugh-way calypso and just use this sort of soca beat or disco influence soca beat behind it. Now at the time, so we used to actually call that disco calypso or disco soca.
Yeah, this
Which was actually different from what Shorty's concept of it is. Shorty's concept was a whole lot deeper. Shorty's concept also went into spirituality, the East Indian, the African, but most people were focused on the beat. But once again, at this time, because of all the back and forth with musicians from the different islands, etc., by the 70s, because of the popularity of reggae music, you had a number of reggae artists started to come to Trinidad to perform from about 1974, 75 onwards, including Jacob Miller, Bob Marley, Peter Tosh, Freddie McGregor. And I still need to confirm this story because let's hear it secondhand and third hand. One of the people I believe that came with Jacob Miller was a drummer called Leroy Wallace, who also goes by the charming name of
Smoke.
Yes, that guy. And the talk is that he heard that soca beat. And when he went back to Jamaica, slowed it down, and one of the first records you can hear that him playing that beat in is something called Fire in Trenchtown that I can't pull up right for the moment.
Fire in Trenchtown.
And this laid the foundations for a new style of reggae music that they call rockers. So rockers was heavily associated with this drummer, Leroy Wallace. And this was very much the rockers. As I say, to me, the resemblance to what I call a standard soca beat is very, very startling. Now, a key difference between Trinidad and Jamaica, and by the way, I am of Trinidadian and Jamaican parentage, so I can make this idle skylark. I think Trinidadians, so this is I'm generalizing here. Trinidadians like to do things to excess. Whereas, have you recorded?
Yeah, Fire in Trenchtown.
Yeah. If you listen, you'll hear that same.
Yeah,
same
Fire in Trenchtown.
Can't remember who was the artist, but I remember the record.
Fire in Trenchtown.
Yeah, but
all right.
Here in Shadow.
By Owen Gray.
Yeah, play a piece of it.
All right, I'll play a little piece of it now for you.
And the whole world tumbling down, police surrounding Rasta, and the soldier they massacre. Jaja know what's the matter, that them not give them no jester. I saw the fire keeps burning.
Right, cool. Yeah, so to me, that record was much closer to soca than it was to reggae. In the sense. So what started to happen?
Let me play another song for you. Hold on.
Hold 1 second. So one thing that happened, as I say, Trinidadians, we have a tendency to take things to excess. We always like to add stuff. So we'll hear something like this. I'll say, that song is empty. I wonder what we could add to that. And we'll add a cowbell, we'll add a congas, a whole bunch of stuff. Jamaicans, on the other hand, Jamaicans like to conserve and recycle. Okay. So a Jamaican would hear that same thing and say, I wonder what I could take out. And this is what Leroy and other drummers like Stan Robbie started doing in Jamaica. So one first thing
the American engineers in New York used to tell us that, there's just too many things in there.
Yeah. So for instance, one of the things that they did was, what if I take out this kick drum? We now have
Mhm.
And we now get a kind of a one. Yeah, we almost get that kind of feel that the wall is almost like funk. And then, hey, what about we take out some of those hi-hats? And this gives a very different kind of bounce. Now the thing about it, so this style of drumming is heavily associated with rockers. The style of drumming is heavily associated with rockers. That now started to travel to places like Santo Domingo, etc. And because it was so heavily associated with reggae music, it led to a new style of music that they call reggaeton, meaning like the reggae sound. To them, that beat was a reggae song. But my
that
contention
come
is
many years after, though.
Yeah, there's many years after. But
many years after.
Yeah, the thing about it came many years after, but the whole reggaeton scene had its genesis in those early rockers records, the early rockers and dancehall.
To me, it sung exactly like soca.
Yes, so to my
Exactly
contention,
like, I mean,
yeah.
you know,
I say it
until
should have
like
been called soca-ton.
people is no, you know, somebody was making the point, I don't know who. They're saying that everybody Marshall Montano works with, like they benefit off of working with him, but he don't benefit so much off of working with them. I mean, like you know, it's saying like, you know, everybody, all them Pitbull and all them fellas come and thing, and all of them start to make things songing like soca and become blow up big internationally, you know. And you know, everybody they start a song.
But I suppose to some extent Trinidad has act like a reservoir, but I believe Leroy Wallace is still alive. Nice to have a conversation with him.
Right,
to find out. But
I want to
play
a song for you, right? Which I think is one of the fathers of soca, not soca, same rockers and reggae, right? This is from the New Orleans band, the Meters. And this is a record from 1969, right? Listen to it and check the bass and guitar and drums and
I'm not too sure I'm hearing what you're hearing.
No, the dub bass line.
Oh yeah,
the dub bass line, right? So I think it come because they used to hear that New Orleans radio clear, and this particular record was very big and was big in Trinidad too. And in fact, the Meters has here a lot of the influence in the guitar playing, like Tony Vonze, and you know, you just hear that whole funk and you know.
Cool, but just to wrap up, there's another Jamaican connection that came a bit later. So one of the things I'm kind of putting out there, maybe a little bit of speculation on my part, is that rockers was really influenced by that whole rocker style was influenced by what was happening, types of the soca drum beat that was popular in Trinidad in the 70s. But later on, there was another Jamaican borough, to take a phrase. I think you know the story behind that one.
Right, yeah.
I
heard that story too.
That is demonstrated also.
They say it was at the corner by Green Corner, like around 6 o'clock. Carnival Tuesday night, like you know, so the band's going home kind of tired after playing all day, right? And the steel band passed, and the drummer was just laying back with one stick and just playing pop, 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 same clave, right? And they said like
very famous Jamaican producers.
Sly and Robbie.
Yeah,
was like here for carnival kind of thing, and and they actually heard this guy just going down pop, 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 singing very tired, and they say, that's it. And like, when they went back up, you started to hear, the influence of that, that's a story I was told.
Yeah, so
I mean?
I heard this story. It's slightly different. It is. I heard it was Roxy Roundabout, but I heard a steel band bomb competition. And
okay.
one detail I always heard was that Sly and Robbie would come here twice a year for Jose in St. James,
right,
and a carnival time.
Well, they're still alive too, so maybe we should talk to them too.
Yes, I did.
And
Two things I
Horsemouth.
did. Yeah, I did see an interview with Robbie Shakespeare, where he
Right.
explained that the foundation of the reggae bass line is actually Calypso. Yeah, he
Well,
said
yeah,
the reggae
Calypso
bass
is
is really a Calypso, a Calypso thing. And I once briefly worked with Sly Dunbar, and the one thing he mentioned to me was, to put it rather charmingly, that that the same thing about excess, like Trinidad as he basically said, Uno have too much music, like Uno have too much oil. Thing Uno just throw away, Jamaicans as pick up. And what he was referring to at the time, I suppose I have to ask it to confirm it. So it once again goes back to that same, if you go back to that same old steel band beat, because I think this is alleged that they heard a steel band coming around the corner playing this. Sorry, let me put back in that last beat.
Yeah.
Except it was late at night, and the drummer
was
drummer
tired,
very
yeah,
tired.
so they was playing slow, yeah.
And essentially they slowed down that beat, and when they went back to Jamaica, as I say, they run the route with that for many years, and that beat became the foundation of modern dancehall. And sometimes, as I say, the usual Jamaican partial of this, finding unusual sounds to pair it with, and just experimenting.
All right.
And doing unusual things like that. Just for me, there was a point in time where every young person in Trinidad, I play that particular beat to, and I say, what beat is that? They say, oh, that's a reggae beat, that's a dancehall beat, not knowing its origins in Calypso and Kaiso. But I suppose to one extent we could say it's a beat, it's a rhythm was made one journey on that ship.
All right. Yeah, well, in New Orleans, the father of New Orleans funk and popular music and stuff is a guy by the name of Professor Longhair, right? He was the guy influenced all the funk, all the everything, and they talk about him, right? And I'm so sorry I couldn't find the video today, but he talks about, he plays syncopated styles and stuff, and he always plays Calypso in there, right? And this song I'm gonna play here now is what they call the national anthem of New Orleans, right? It's like about the Mardi Gras Indians. It's called Big Chief, but right now, so that is Funkify Your Life by the Meters playing there, right? So we don't want to hear that, right? So we want to hear this. Yeah.
Yeah, you can hear
Interesting,
the
eh?
influences.
1964.
Mhm. Very interesting, very interesting.
Mhm.
But I say one of the, just in closing, one of the issues of the modern era, though, is so from to Jamaica, from Trinidad to Jamaica to Santo Domingo to Puerto Rico, this beat has sort of traveled. And in the last 5 years, it very much dominated popular music in the last 5 years. There was a point in time, sometime last year, actually, I was listening to the American Top 40, and the top 5 songs all had that type of beat. And I was thinking to myself, this is really the legacy of Lord Shorty. This is where that beat has reached that soca beat. It's just unfortunate that it is not really identified as such and is referred to as a dancehall beat, as a tropical house beat, now as a Afro beat kind of thing. I don't know if it's too late for us to, in Trinidad, to kind of stake a claim on it, but hopefully by doing this workshop, we just try to put a little bit of that knowledge outside there. So I really like to thank the organizers for having us, and chance to kind of expatiate, as it were. Mr. Foster.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm an explatiator.
Yeah. And I think we definitely have to get together and finish that documentary.
Yeah, boy. That's what I need. I need some I need a little encouragement,
Yeah. Get definitely to get out there. Cool.
Right. So we
say
good?
That's it for me.
All right. Anybody want to sponsor two Asian guys so that we could finish this documentary and still have food on the table? You're willing to call. You know what I mean? Yeah, you should call. All right.
Yes.
These is work we should do, right? Because as I always say, if we don't document these things, we're kind of writing ourselves out of the history of the world, right?
Yes,
so it is very important. It's not about, we just look at these things as recreation, but it's not that. This is a serious thing, we serious people in the world, So, so thanks for being given this thing. Mice, as always, boy, has learned so much from you.
Likewise,
you're a real teacher. You could see how you had everything prep and thing, Me, I just pull thing out ad hoc out of the thing, you know what I mean? So nice. One of these days I must come to your class.
Definitely organize some guest lectures from him, most definitely,
All right, that's good. Okay, so peeps, ole around.
Mr. Raymond and Mr. Foster, thank you so much. I enjoyed learning about the link between Kaiso and Soca, how music from the US, Ghana, and other countries influence our music, and vice versa. I particularly loved learning about the history of our music, especially Mr. Robbins' documentary. And I must agree that we need to preserve these documentaries in order to preserve our history for the future generations.
All right.
I really enjoyed this documentary. I'll start off by saying that. Well, this interview, by the way.
It's a documentary. You all recorded it, though, right?
That was a verbal typo. Yes. As a performer, you two legends have truly influenced me in several ways.
With legends by mice by. It would be too bad. We should be rich.
Appreciate, but as a colleague of mine says, legendary statuses for when you pass away,
Right.
We just out there doing the work.
Yeah. We do it. We're trying.
But appreciate it,
Yes, no problem at all. In 2018, actually, I had the pleasure of getting unmatched tips on the instrumentation of my first song, Dance Floor, featuring Zachary Dilemma, who Mr. Raymond, he taught Zachary at UTT, and I was at UTT in that year as well. And that Kaiso Blues, Mr. Robin Foster did sound engineering for a couple of my performances, which
what?
I
Yes, but I know the face was familiar. Mm.
Yes.
So, our closing questions. What would you say is the biggest influence Trinidad and Tobago's music has had on the world?
Boy, all right, look at it this way, right? Reggae is Jamaican. Calypso is Caribbean. Anytime, if you look at any Disney show, cartoons, anything, and they want to show the Caribbean, right, they would always show, they would have some kind of little old-time steel band playing, pung, 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 you know, little kind of thing like that, and it would be kind of, they might call it reggae, right? But Calypso is the kind of music of the Caribbean. It has influenced everything, right? It was the first record that ever sold 1 million copies was called Calypso. It was by Harry Belafonte, right? But it was called Calypso.
And one of the first things ever recorded was Calypso music.
Right, I think, yeah.
Yeah, to answer that question shortly, I would give 3 examples. So there's a guy by the name, a little folk singer called Bob Dylan. I'm sure you might have heard of him. I think he won some Nobel Prize or something the other day. He cites Calypso as a huge influence. He talks about the Mighty Sparrows being the greatest live performer he has ever seen, bar none. And then there were these 4 guys from England, a place in Liverpool in England. Can't quite remember the name right now. John,
I think, yeah, something,
Paul,
the Bees
Ringo.
or something, yeah.
Yeah. But there was a Calypso.
Or...
Yeah, the Beatles. Yeah, the Beatles. That was
right. That was them, yeah.
But there's a Calypsonian from Laventille, Lord Woodbine, is one of the guys that taught them how to play their instruments, how to write songs, etc. In fact, the interview I'm trying to track down, I heard it in passing a day. There's an interview, there's a series on rock and roll on the BBC, and they were interviewing Gene Simmons of the rock group Kiss. And he said that the reason he felt the British artists like the Beatles and the Stones were so much better at taking that American form, rock and roll, and selling it back to them was they could all write songs. He says, whereas in America, there was a small category of songwriters writing for everybody. But he says those British guys learned from the Calypso guys. And in the Calypso tradition, you had to write your own songs. So he said all the British rockers, because they were influenced by the Calypso guys, they had this tradition of writing their own songs.
And in fact, I found out, I just found out recently that Jimi Hendrix was the way how he would perform and dress. That thing with the head tie is a limbo dancer from Trinidad. He got that from in London.
Kwashi.
Right, Kwashi. Right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So Trinidad has an influence politically, you know, all around the world. Trinidad is an amazing place if you really get to learn the history. Right. I mean, I think there was a Trini on the Supreme Soviet.
Yeah. That was me. This
George Padmore, you know.
So this country, music from this country has been very, very influential. So I know I said a short answer, but we still counting the actual influences and different ways Calypso music in particular has touched the world and influenced different things.
The last great American minstrel, Van Dyke Parks, right? He, from time to time, he would put up, he says he looks at Sparrow and Kitchener like Bach and Brahms or whatever, right? And he would, he calls Kitchener one of the 20th century's great melody makers, you know, and that is what he was, you know. We have a root music, but we have influenced everybody, you know. Everybody.
Yeah, and I said it's primarily because Calypso is one of the foundation musics that came out of the Americas at the end of the Atlantic slave trade and the end of slavery. So Calypso, blues, Calypso and blues, and some elements of that Latin clave music in Cuba and Brazil. that is really like the DNA, the foundation for all the
Right.
forms of music that we
and we
imply
had
into
the Yoruba tradition here, as in
Yeah.
Cuba, as in Brazil, as
Yes,
in
yes,
like
yes.
Mississippi in the States. That New
Yeah.
Orleans thing is that whole you know, the
whole West
influence
African,
of
yeah.
Ogun and the pan and the you know and steel, you know, I mean, yeah, we's a serious place. We are the bottom of the Caribbean and everything kind of rolled down. So we kind of get everything, you know.
yes. From the bottom of the Caribbean.
From the bottom of the Caribbean, right? Right. Soca people have to rise.
Right.
That's Iowa, right?
Yeah.
Right, you know.
Most definitely. Cool. Well, thank you very much for having us. No further questions. Did EDM originate from Trinidad? We not entirely, but it has there is an influence in the sense of the way that disco music, one could say, was influenced by music from the Caribbean in the form of that first
I remember working in the studio with Eddie Grant some years ago, and Eddie Grant, you know, he would look at you and say, "Soca has been selling millions all around the world under the name of techno."
Yes. So he might have a point. The one thing I'll say, which actually I deal with in one of my UGT classes, is that the Jamaican and Trinidadian approach to sound systems and PA systems has been a huge influence on that techno and EDM, particularly the live events, things like Love Parade and the Ultra Music Festival, etc. What you're seeing there is a legacy of the sound system culture of Jamaica and the soca wars of the 1980s, the Firefly versus Chandelier versus Song Revolution. In that 10-year period, we kind of laid a foundation for how things should be done sonically in a live event.
And the music truck culture is only us could have built truck up to some years ago is very Frank Agarat and them go away and teach people in Jamaica and in Miami and in New York how to put up a music truck, you know. It's like,
In fact, I remember the first year we performed, Firefly performed in New York, when our engineers went to PA company and said, we want to hire a PA system, we want to put it on a truck. They almost called the police. It's like, what? Are you guys crazy? And eventually, I think they had to travel to Washington, D.C. or Virginia Beach before they found a guy in a PA company. There was a guy from Trinidad who knew about it and was like, yes, these guys put speakers on trucks. You can rent it to them, you know. So cool. So once again, thanks, and we really try to document these things and spread the knowledge as much as possible. Cool. All right, take care. Gotta go.
Describe it. Clearly, Trinidad and Tobago music is as large as the whole world.
Yes, most definitely.
I have a question. Why is the Black Consciousness Festival important in these times? And how can people benefit from participating in this festival?
Well, I do hope everyone has benefited from this talk here, tonight. It's just another part of the puzzle that came out of the African diaspora.
Yeah, boy. Well, you know, I mean, Black people kind of always under pressure, but we always survive. You know, I mean, if you could go through all that Middle Passage and slavery and all them kind of thing, you know.
As I say, we fought in this generation triumphantly.
That's correct. You understand? From the bottom of the Caribbean, soca people have to rise. Wherever you are.
The slave ships.
Right, you know. Yeah, for sure.
Slave ships and the indenture ships. That's what Shorty tried to pull those two streams together.
Right.
Well, thank you. I feel I've got to run, so take care and good to see you there. We'll definitely link up.
Okay, all right, guys. Trinidad and Tobago, the world, it was nice. All right, mice, as I say, always a pleasure, brother.
Same here.
All right,
much appreciated.
cool.
Right,
Yeah, man.
Thank you for doing, audience. Thank you for joining Black Consciousness Festival. Kaiso.